these big brands, they may say they have education, but they can't force these agents to be educated. They can't see that they're getting educated. There's no accountability.
There's no accountability.
No. Oh, I got my real estate license a year ago. Like, you don't know shit because you just got licensed. And you're going to hold yourself out like you do? I mean, this is my problem with real estate.
Welcome to the Re-Strategy Podcast. I'm your host, Samantha Graff, alongside my co-hosts, Shannon Hall and Mark Jarbo. Join us as we lift the veil on the real estate industry and give you the tools to become a more savvy home buyer, seller, agent, and lender. Stay tuned because we're about to lay it all out on the table. Welcome back. Episode 6. You probably heard us talk about it last episode. Big brand bullshit. I'm so stoked about this one. I know that this is, Shannon.
Can't even imagine how this one's going to go.
Yeah, this is a topic that just fires you right up, Shannon.
It does.
And Mark,
Very much.
I think that you'll probably have something to contribute to this too, because there's some big brand
I have a
lenders
lot
out there.
to say about a lot of things.
I have a lot to say about a lot. So
I do.
Yeah, so let's kick it off. So what do you think?
So what I think is that there's an ass for every seat, and nothing is truer in real estate than that. There's tons of brands out there, and I think that who you work with really matters, and you have to understand that not everybody that belongs to these big brands is educated.
True.
A lot of consumers tend to gravitate toward these big brands because they think that it's some big deal if an agent belongs to a specific brand. But I can promise you that most of the agents that work for those big brands are not educated agents. I'm going to tell you about that. Obviously, since KW started, a lot of brands have been knocking off their setup, which is a profit-sharing setup. And it makes agents feel like, oh, I own some stock in these companies or whatever it may be. Anybody that understands even a little bit about economics and stock and even a tiny, tiny bit of capitalism would understand that the only people making money in these brands are the owners of these companies. It's the very top. That's right.
Pyramid schemes.
Yeah, it's the MLM of real estate.
Pretty much. So, like EXP was a big one that came out, and they were really pushing for everybody to join them. The agent recruitment was intense because if you had so many people, then there was so much money to be made.
Yeah.
And if you've ever seen the KW profit sharing model, it's super convoluted and almost impossible to understand.
Oh, so it's the LuLaRoe of real estate.
Well,
recruit.
And I'm not saying there's not some good agents at EXP or KW. I mean, there are good agents in every brand.
Sure.
But because people tend to flock toward big brands and they don't really consider independence, and not even all independent brokerages are great. It's you really have to do your research with brands. But what I call the KWification of brands is like EXP, Real. I think there are a lot more names I could name off, but those are some of the bigger names that are out there. And it's basically the same stuff regurgitated with maybe a different twist.
Right.
Right now, there's a brand that's like, oh, we offer, free healthcare for agents. Well, on the onset, that sounds great because we're all independent contractors. And we all know that our health insurance is really expensive, but there's nothing free. Okay.
Nothing's free.
Like I've seen a
all
lot
the
of these
time.
business models, and I've seen a lot of how they're developed, and the caps are insane. The E&O insurance is insane. The legal fund is insane. Like the things, there's desk fees, and I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And these people are just feed so much. And when consumers understand that agents that work for these big brands, there's only so much that they can come down in their cost to operate that they're paying their brokers. And the only way these people make money with the underlings, in these like pyramids, is that there has to be a cut for everybody. So there's only so much they can fluctuate in what their take is.
And we've seen those legal fee funds.
Oh my gosh.
The brokers, they don't do shit. I mean,
the issue as a broker that I see consistently with these big brands is their agents are not trained. They do things, say things that are totally untrue. I mean, they'll literally get on social media and pontificate, and it's like, okay, everything you're saying is a lie. And
stop
then
sharing.
there's other
your
people that are
information.
like, yeah, that's right. I'm
They
like,
pack
that is
like-
totally wrong.
They pack like 10,000 people in a room and
Right. Well, basically, they're
It's
license holders.
unbelievable.
So these companies, they just aggregate a lot of licenses. And if somebody sells something by chance, it's just more money for them, more money for the people at the top.
at the top. Yeah.
And what consumers need to understand is just because somebody belongs to these big brands, it doesn't mean that they're the best agent to choose.
No.
Now, there are certain places that are great for agents that are super seasoned and don't need broker oversight. But the majority of these brands have literally no broker oversight. And if they do, it's like on a very minuscule level. Like, yeah, somebody's looking at your documents, making sure the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. Maybe they're going through some sort of compliance. But are they training agents? Are they really training agents? Because I'm going to tell you, they're not.
Well, with everything happening right now, ain't nobody fucking training agents.
Well, I can tell you,
Sorry.
since this NAR announcement, social media has erupted with opinions. And my feeling on this is, why do we have opinions right now? We don't even know that this is a settlement that is going to happen. We aren't going to know that for a few months. We do know that the brands that are swept up in this lawsuit are the big brands. We know why these suits were filed. If anybody wants to study these suits, they were all filed against gigantic brands. This settlement is only going to be good for brokers that have closed $2 billion in sales or less. The rest of these big brands are on the hook for like 0.0025% of their average sales over a 4-year period. So for example, EXP, I think they did 159 million or something last year, or billion in sales.
I was like, oh, that's not that
So
much.
I don't know what their
Yeah,
average
wow.
4-year sales are, but they would take the average of that 4 years and they would be on the hook for 0.0025%. Well, I'm sure that EXP is not going to agree to that. That's like $400 million if 159 million was, or billion was the sale number.
But they should be on the hook for this. I mean, they're the ones who are going to force us to rid of buyer's agency, which is going to really disrupt this for buyers.
Well, I'm a designated agency. So as a designated agency, buyer broker agreements, they had to be in place regardless. Like you had to have that signed.
Truth.
Versus traditional agencies, they could or didn't have to have that signed. It didn't matter. But anyone that's a designated agency, it's required by law.
I really think that for me, these big brand companies and the agents that follow them very heavy, I feel that the money really got to their head,
Well, I mean, it's like when you think about EXP doesn't have a single brick and mortar. If they have a brick and mortar, it's because it's owned by a
insanity.
team leader. That team leader has other teams underneath them and they build underneath them. And it's this whole,
MLM.
top to bottoms
Yeah.
money scheme.
Yeah.
And, agents have a very short attention span. They will always run to the next shiny new thing. I mean, that happens. When I opened up, people were running to me too. The difference is that I wasn't taking everybody because I wanted a specific type of personality, a specific type of, I guess, moral fiber in an agent. I don't practice dual agency. I don't allow the practice of dual agency. And I understand that they're all independent contractors, but you would have to agree to that to come work here and understand like how dual agency can really crush a consumer on either side. So, there was a certain level of accountability that I wanted. And I'll tell you, the agents that have left me, they've practiced dual agency in other places. And that's their choice. It's their business. They can run it any way they want. I'm not comfortable with that practice. I think that's clear. But the lack of accountability is a real problem. In the state of Michigan, if you hold yourself out, let's say that I'm a team. I'm the Shannon Hall team at Dwellings, Michigan. And I decide that I'm going to put my brand on social media, put my brand on my cards, put my brand on a billboard, put my brand in a signature line. The state says that the broker, the company you work for, has to be conspicuous. And the font of your broker, so mine's Dwellings, could not have a bigger team name than that of my broker. It has to be conspicuous to the consumer that they can identify who you work for. Okay.
Right.
Drive around town. There isn't a single billboard in compliance. There isn't a single signature line in compliance. Agents hit social media, and I had a conversation with somebody on X the other day that was a social media person saying, don't waste your money on branding yourself using your broker brand. Just, go on as your own brand because you're really the brand. And, that is true. You are the brand. But I said, well, agents can't do that because you're a social media guru, right?
Yeah.
Agents can't do that. They can't hold themselves out as X team and not mention who their broker is. And this guy said, sends me the NAR guideline and something else. And I said, well, it's literally right there in the guideline that you sent me. He's like, oh, it's not true for social media. I'm like, it's right there in the guideline that you sent me. It's literally number 1 and 2. Like, trust me, I understand the guideline. I can tell you at my company, I am probably over the top with people branding outside of the brand. I don't mind if they do, but we are very, very compliant. There are tons of agents that are not compliant. They don't have anybody in these big brands overseeing any of this stuff. They're not even paying attention to social media and what their agents are putting out there. So the state said, okay, we're going to start cracking down on this. And it was like around 2017. They literally don't crack down on anybody. They don't care.
Too much money involved.
Yeah, we have a local guy who, near us, who literally branded himself outside of his brand for years before finally becoming a broker. And the state literally does nothing to enforce it. They said, oh, we're going to. Okay, they're never going to.
It sounds like after years and years and years of just the state proving and, the boards proving that they don't really care about what goes on and what's broken, that it's kind of perpetuated where we are now and into these lawsuits, that it's like, do whatever you want. And now finally like, oh, wait, okay, time out. That was too much. Like,
yeah,
the whole system is kind of
it
fucked.
is. And like,
it's
the
a lack
state
of
of Michigan,
it's a lack of implementation on a lot of things from the state, from
the boards,
yep, from the brands themselves.
Yep.
At the end of the day, I like how you hold everybody accountable in your brand, in your office. That's the real way to do things.
Well,
I don't
one
think
would
it's
think,
fair.
but I'll tell you, some agents feel suffocated by it, especially if they come from another brand. They feel suffocated by it. But it's like, there will be a time that you will get sued.
Yeah.
And I don't want you to get sued. I'm trying to cover your ass.
My question to you is, okay, well, these agents get suffocated when they come to your brand, right? Do they know that the suffocation is helping them?
No.
That's the problem
They
with
see it as a
people,
hindrance.
and that's what I can't stand either.
Well, because the thing is, when you
they're taught
belong to these
wrong.
big brands and there's no supervision, that they've been potentially decades just doing whatever the hell they want, not getting any education beyond their Con Ed, or even anybody saying, hey, here's a great course. I had a guy that worked with me for a while, and he was a alleged commercial agent. And when I said to him, what kind of commercial education do you have? He has like literally no formal commercial education. Like, well, how are you selling buildings and restaurants and gas stations with no commercial education? And I introduced an institute for him to attend this. And it is like a 5-year deal. And it's a lot of education, but it would have put him over the top. And his response was, well, that's too much money. $1,000 for your first year is too much money. Like, you're not even but you're holding yourself out as a commercial agent.
Wow.
This is what I'm saying. There's literally no accountability.
Bro,
so
it's
when
such
they come to
bullshit.
work for me,
It's
they
crazy.
feel like their hands are tied. It's like, but you don't know anything. You're out here practicing real estate in a field that you're not even educated in.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars people are trusting you with.
Yeah, up to millions of dollars.
Millions of dollars. What are you
Millions of
talking
dollars.
about?
And
Commercial
you feel
transactions are
handcuffed
worth
by
millions.
me. You've handcuffed yourself.
Idiots.
Oh, I got my real estate license a year ago. Like, you don't know shit because you just got licensed. And you're going to hold yourself out like you do? I mean, this
It's
is my
crazy.
problem with real estate as a whole.
Something's got to
And
change.
when they're these big brands, they may say they have education, but they can't force these agents to be educated. They
No.
can't see that they're getting educated. There's no accountability.
There's no accountability.
No. I mean, try to get a hold of one of those brokers. Those brokers aren't overseeing anything.
No.
And I'm telling you, NAR, if they really want to do something for consumers, hold these brokers' feet to the fire. I mean, seriously, like, I don't know what is going on, but there is a serious lack of accountability with real estate brokers across the board. And I don't care if they're big brand, independent brand, it doesn't matter to me. We are responsible for what our agents put on the street. And if we're not overseeing it and we're not holding up the law and holding up the code of ethics as realtors, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Preach.
Okay.
Yes.
Jesus.
For real.
So you want to know why I don't have 60 agents or 100 agents working for me? Because A, I can't oversee that many. B, I don't want that many. C, I would be hard pressed to find 60 agents in my area that were worth it. I honestly,
That's
like,
real.
it's very tough to find a great agent or people that want to be.
And you work with the other agents on a daily basis. Your teams within your brokerage work with the other agents on a daily basis, and you're constantly cleaning up the shit. I mean, I can't
But
can't
that's
even
my
count.
job is to clean it up. My job is to make sure that everything's done the proper way and that my
Truly.
agents are very well educated. I take that very personally. And I'm not saying that all brokers are bad. They're not. I know some really great brokers.
But if every broker was focusing on the education and focusing on really
yes.
doing their job right and abiding by the guidelines and educating themselves and cleaning up their agent shit so that you don't have to. I mean, I can
Just pulling their weight, Sam.
truly, I mean,
If they
I
just
can't even
pulled their
count
weight, they'd be fine.
how many agents you take up to the board every year to be like, this agent,
a whole lot less than I should, because if I literally filed an action against every single agent that made some sort of
major error.
major error, I'd literally be in front of the board every day, all day. Like,
Yeah.
there's only so much that I can do, and I can't focus on all that negativity. I mean,
Yeah.
I have people to build, I have doors to keep open,
Yeah.
lights to keep on, and I'm not responsible for everybody else, but I am responsible for what happens in my brokerage. I take it seriously. I hire accordingly. And as soon as somebody shows me who they are that's different than what I thought they are, they're out the door. Because for me, it's not even about the brand. I do take it personally because I know that I've trained to the nth degree and I know what these people can bring to the table. And, I think it's this NAR lawsuit. I'm praying to God that it opens people's eyes
Yeah.
to what is really happening in our industry. People are not numbers. And if your focus is only numbers and not your consumer and not your agents, you got to ask yourself, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
Because it's those people that give people like me a bad reputation. And I mean, agents have the reputation of being like used car salesmen. No offense to any used car salesmen out there, but we deserve that reputation. We deserve that reputation.
That's the sad aspect of it.
It is true.
That is the
Okay,
sad
and so
aspect of
there
it.
was this big reaction from, I think it was Housing Wire that I read it on. I subscribe to a lot of these different, online subscription magazines, if you will, or whatever in our industry,
Yeah.
just to catch all the information flying around. And it said, the mortgage industry response to the NAR real estate proposed settlement, that lenders need to find buyers before agents find buyers, and lenders need to be licensed to sell real estate. And I can tell you, when I read that, it left such a bad taste in my mouth, because I'm like, okay, the mortgage industry was under absolute lobotomy back in 2008.
They literally
Okay.
just carpet bombed the entire industry.
Exactly. And now the mortgage industry, I think it was on Housing Wire. And now you're saying that industry experts are weighing in, mortgage industry experts
So
are weighing in,
sad.
saying, oh, lenders, you should sell real estate too. Because, buyer agent commission's going away. buyer agent commission isn't going away, okay? That's not true. But what does that say for the industry? Like, if you want to do something that is really going to set mortgage and real estate on fire, you may as well light a match and make us all disappear.
Yeah.
Start doing that. Start doing more of that. Start encouraging more of that. Now, that is a true conflict of interest. I get really passionate and so fired up over these topics because I kind of feel like there is way more than meets the eye. And I'm not going to get into all of it because everyone knows that I am somewhat of a conspiracy theorist, except they are all coming true. I think there's a way more to it than that. And you and I both know who wrote the EXP
Yes.
financial whatever, their plan.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's so super confusing. And we know it was intentionally set up that way. Here's my thing. I don't really care who somebody works for. But what I do think that consumers need to understand is just be very cautious about who you hire, because you get one shot at doing whatever you need to do the proper way, like selling your house or buying a house.
Mhm.
This past weekend, we had this house for sale on a street that had another house for sale. And the house that I listed was like, it was literally through the roof. I mean, major people at the open house. You can
Yeah.
attest to it. You were there.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how many people came through the open house. Like
50 plus families.
Even the
Yeah.
calls you got beforehand were
and it was
outrageous.
in our area, a high price listing. And there's another house just down the street that just had a price reduction right before ours went live. And it's a nice house, but that agent didn't, use a professional photographer, didn't even turn lights on for her cell phone pictures, the house was a mess. It's a hodgepodge.
Yeah.
I mean, it really needed staging. It needed a lot of things. And the difference between what we put on the market and what she put on the market is, like, we ended up getting 50,000+ over asking.
54,000.
54, 56,
Yeah.
56,000
56.
over asking. and
Wow.
it's not, I mean, I priced the house and then the seller didn't believe the price, thought it was worth more. We had it independently appraised. I didn't pick the appraiser. The appraiser came in at the same price I came up with. You know this.
Yes.
And it went through the roof because of the presentation, because we took so much care in how that we brought it to the market.
Can I make a comment real quick? Well,
Sure.
hold your thoughts, but there was a client that walked in, just somebody walked through the open, saw the open house on her phone, and she came to see it.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as she walked in, she goes, "Oh my God. The pictures look like what you guys showed."
Yes.
And
That's-
the
that's
listing.
architectural photography. And that's why I love Nev, the photographer that we use, because he never misrepresents a house through photos. He's
Shout out
such
to
a
Nev.
great pro.
Yeah.
Yeah, shout out to Nev.
It's great.
And this is true. And the same thing with Tina and her staging. Like, everything that we do, we've used these people for years. Everything we do is first class. I feel bad for the person who has their house listed down the street. They're taking a beating on their price now.
They are.
Already a $10,000 reduction. Who knows how much more it's going to reduce? And here's the thing. I can't go knock on that door and say, lady or guy, you're getting screwed over.
Yeah, your agent sucks.
Right.
But it's true to what you say. You only have one shot. That house is already on the market. So if
Yeah.
they were to take it off and put it back on with you, they're still screwed.
Well, to a degree. So if I were to take that listing on, because exhuming a house from the ashes is a very difficult task.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of marketing money, a lot of marketing dollars. I wouldn't take a discounted listing in this case. But if I were going to take that listing, I would immediately end it, give it 30 days to relax off the MLS. Just okay, I would go in and I would paint the
Yeah.
rooms that need to be painted, fix the things that need to be fixed, clean up that yard. Oh my gosh, the pictures in the yard, blue tarps it's insane.
It's disgusting.
I mean, disgusting. And I would obviously have it fully staged. I'm very, very anal, super, super clean, super deep cleaned, every light bulb the same throughout the house. So it presents beautifully when you light it up. Have the architectural photographer come in, obviously have it staged. and present it with major coming soon marketing for like 5 days, where I'm just like shoving money into like Google and Facebook ads, and I mean just making it look very different than it is. Get
Yeah.
it relaxed. Now, Zillow never forgets. It's going to always know it's there, but the presentation is everything. And we would get a lot more than what she's asking or they're asking for the house. But, you know, I don't control it. There's nothing I can do about it. I can't go after the listing, but
Who you
work with matters. And I just promise you this. Every detail matters, and I know people hear me say this. I'm going to say it as much as I have to for it to resound. Every single thing matters to who your lender is when you're a buyer,
Amen.
Yep.
to who your agent is when you're a buyer, to your agent is when you're a seller.
Amen. Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, finding a great house, negotiating a great house, selling a great house, everybody needs to close.
Yeah.
Without closing, no one's buying, no one's selling, no one's making any money.
Right.
Yeah.
It has to close. And vetting offers is just as important.
Right.
So you got to really know who you're working with.
Absolutely.
Who you work with matters.
Well, thank you so much for listening, Shannon. I just love your passion.
Yeah, I love
appreciate
that.
you.
I love the passion.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and stay tuned for the next one.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us on the Re-Strategy Pod. You're the reason we make this podcast, and we would love to hear from you. If you'd like to be featured and have a real estate story to share, good, bad, or horrific, go to restrategypod.com and share your story with us. Until next time.